A lot of what I'm about is expanding the dialogue. I would say particularly because I do deal with, I deal with history beyond like the 500 years. You know, I think too much art stays within, you know, that time period.
Sort of when you say stays within a time period, what do you mean?
What I mean is like it doesn't go beyond, like we like to use words like post-black. Let's talk about post-black. We haven't even talked about pre-black. You know what I mean? So that's like one example. Like what happened before the 500 years? You know, what led up to that? What created that? What were all these things about before they came about?
Mm-hmm. When you say 500 years, you're talking about the sort of the European discovery of black culture?
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Okay.
That's one of the things I'm talking about, yeah.
Okay, all right. I'm going to move on to sort of a last image here, which is this one, which I love.
Oh, nice.
The Benin City globetrotter. And it's basically, again, I'd say this sort of metallic skin thing.
Yeah.
You seem to like. But this one has sort of ridges, sort of metallic ridges in the skin. And the composition is a great composition because it's another warrior with swords, you know, sort of X pattern in the back, two swords. And it's kind of what people would recognize as a kind of African sculptural face.
Bronze bust.
Yeah. And he seems to be either walking or running somewhere. And there's a pattern behind him. It's kind of a zigzag pattern behind. How did this come about? And when did you actually do this one?
This was one of the earlier ones in the body. Maybe one of the first maybe one of the first ones. Actually, sorry, maybe one of the first ones. And I just wanted to create like this you know, superhero figure that kind of, you know, like precedes or where we're at now, really this almost like future oriented, like, it's me. I don't know.
It's you.
Yeah. It's like who I want to be. I mean, all these figures are who I'd like to be, you know.
Huh.
You know, and a lot of what it's about when I talk about why I kind of brought that up is bringing the dialogue outside of the 500 years, is because, you know, I went to like 8 years of art school, you know, and I studied in Europe for a year. You know, you start to like see a lot of like depictions of black people, let's just say, in European painting, and you're like, whoa, this is kind of interesting. These were depictions of black people before, again, the 500 years. So it was oftentimes like before they would probably even considered black people. But it was how
before they were sort of burdened with that.
Yeah, it was at a time that's very alien to me. I mean, black history to me before the 500 years is kind of alien territory. So
alien in what sense?
Alien in the sense that we don't know much about it and we don't talk much about it. It's not part of our curriculum.
It's not part of regular discussion.
We've been indoctrinated by something that's totally different. Let's just say, and to see these images
until quite recently, and even probably when I was going to school, which is probably 20 years ago, African, anything African was less than. So even if you discussed if you discussed it, you were talking about the lesser.
And in the reality of it is that the history of black people or melanated people it's vast and it's expansive and it's terrible and it's glorious. It's history. There's the good and the bad. So I'll just make a couple quick points, but so oftentimes I'm depicting like these superheroes in these like kind of like future-oriented looking figures, because what I'm seeing in these books, especially these old books, are these dignified, like regal people that have this history and this knowledge and this like self-confidence that I don't see depicted within the 500 years. And to me, that's alien. What I've grown up seeing is the oppressed, the victimized, the shackled, the downtrodden, the disheveled.
Okay.
And when I go, you know, in kind of older history, prehistory, it's the complete opposite. So that influence is...
Yeah, I'm learning something here today because I'm learning from you that, and again, when I was in school, these were conversations that never happened.
Yeah.
But what you're saying to me is that you're learning from your recent attendance at Hunter's, is that you were given a portal. you had a portal to go and look at pieces, look at art pieces before sort of colonialism came in.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't just at Hunter, but it was all throughout time. But before I was educated, I just thought they were all slaves. But then I realized, oh, these were like people of Moorish descent. And then I learned who they were. And then I was like, whoa, something's going on here. Something weird is going on. Yeah, and then the more you do and the more you get into, the more interesting it gets. But you kind of realize like the subjectivity in history, and that's kind of where I find my truth in history. I think this reality that we live in is kind of built off the foundation of the history that at least we've been indoctrinated with.
And what you're basically saying is that history is not something that's set in stone. It's
Absolutely
something
not.
that is sort of moving all the time. And that's where your interest
to create an identity or a reality based off of, like, maybe I would say a deeper history or a longer range of history is pretty absurd. I think it's pretty funny. So a lot of with my work, not all of it, but some of it is what you're seeing maybe for the first time is like black radicalism neutralized. And I don't know if anybody's really seen or done that before. Oftentimes when you're talking about...
Say that again.
Black radicalism neutralized. In my work, humor is the grand neutralizer, but it's like, what are we neutralizing here?
Hold on. Wait. So if I'm an old Black Panther devotee, for lack of a better term, and I was alive during that time, and I hear black radicals neutralized, I would say
neutralized, yeah.
I would say to you, listen, young man, what are you, the FBI? You're going to neutralize it? That's who neutralized it. And you now, who benefited from that, you're saying you want to neutralize that? Who are you, and what is your problem?
Yeah, I don't mean neutralized in that sense, but what I mean by neutralize is kind of removing some of the bias or the kind of chip on the shoulder in regards to history that I'm seeing, that I'm feeling. And I think that's what kind of closes the door for a lot of people to kind of get into this information. Because I'm kind of ushering people into a lot of...
So let me because I don't want to get too academic here.
Yeah.
So I'm going to bring it back to popular culture.
Okay.
So a movie like Shaft, for instance, in which the hero is, in a dramatic sense, in a kind of real dramatic sense, where you have a hero who has faults, and then there's sort of a tragedy. There's something tragic in his character that ultimately leads to the ultimate tragedy of the play or of the story. In something like Shaft is sort of he's a character that's sort of ready-made. Mm-hmm. And he's a character that's there to fight off oppression, right? Yeah?
Yeah, I follow you.
So what you're saying is that that's an interesting character, but it's not interesting to you, in the sense that it's great that he's heroic.
It's too third dimension for me.
Okay. You mean it's too flat?
Yeah.
Okay. It's too flat. It's not. It's not sort of a three-dimensional person.
It's not fantastical enough.
It's not. It's a complete opposite. It's not fantastical enough.
Yeah.
Huh. So you're saying, like, even like these kinds of black exploitation movies, you don't think that these people are kind of, like you said it already.
You know,
they're not.
Yeah, I just think
enough.
for like the time, like at the time, it was great. It's fine, you know. But that was at that time, you know. Like we can't still like go off of what Malcolm X was saying in the, you know, back then. Like we're like. People have done a lot of work already, and we're like keep like beating a dead horse. I feel like, you know, it's like, you know, this is where we're at now. It's I guess 2013. Like
That's interesting.
You know, but
So-
I want to get people talking about this stuff. Like
Right.
I'm trying to flip the same switches that have been flipped in my mind in your mind.